August 22nd, Goffstown Select Board meeting. First up, would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number one on our agenda is the acceptance and correction of minutes from 8/8/22, and we only had, do we have it non-public? Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Yeah. Public and non-public minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the 8/8/22 public and non-public minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? 4-0. We have some announcements tonight. First up is the supervisors of the checklist will be in session Saturday, September 3rd, at Town Hall, 16 Main Street in Goffstown, New Hampshire, downstairs, room 109, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. This session is for new voter registration and to make changes in names and/or addresses to correct the checklist. Party affiliation cannot be made at this time. If you are registering to vote, please bring your photo ID, proof of date of birth, and residence address. Anyone not born in the United States must also bring proof of citizenship. Any person with a disability who needs to be provided a reasonable accommodation to participate, please call 497-8990, extension 100, at least 72 hours in advance. Do you want to read this? Do we want to read this now?
Yeah.
We have a proclamation. And it's a proclamation for the town of Goffstown, whereas public employees make great contributions to their communities by serving in areas such as crime prevention, fire protection, public works, utility service, facility and park maintenance, recreation programming, and youth sports, community programming, and critical library services, code compliance, planning and development, finance and economic development, administration. And whereas the public employees of the town of Goffstown are committed to exhibiting the highest standards of professional excellence, creativity, skill, and customer service. And whereas day in and day out they provide the quality and the quantity of diverse services required and expected by the citizens of Goffstown with efficiency, effectiveness, and integrity. And whereas without these public employees at every level, continuity of service would be impossible. Whereas the town of Goffstown recognizes the dedication and talents of our public employees as well as the value of the services they render. And now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Select Board, Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, by the virtue and authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim the week of August 22nd through the 28th, 2022, as a Town and Goffstown Employee Appreciation Week throughout the town of Goffstown, New Hampshire, and we urge all the citizenry of the town of Goffstown to recognize that day. And this is given under our hands and seals the 22nd day of August 2022. So congratulations to all of our departments and our employees. Derek, you want to do something first here?
Sure, if you want to go to tab 7A, you can review the committee meeting schedule. This week, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at Grassmere Town Hall with HGC.
Yep.
And at 7 p.m. Conservation here's in Town Hall.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
You're going to cover that? Thank you. Again, Thursday night will be the Town Employee Appreciation Barbecue for those that can make it. Next week, there are no meetings. And then the following week on Monday, September 5th, Labor Day, Holiday Town Hall will be closed. On Wednesday of that week at 6 p.m. EDC is meeting.
Yeah, I got it.
And 7 p.m. Planning Board. We will reach out if we need coverage for that meeting.
Derek, the August 29th to September 2nd, that Wednesday, I have the library board working meeting.
Working meeting?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Your next page, you have your consent agenda. You have employee status reports. You have a firefighter resignation, You have 4 firefighters, successful completion of probationary period. You have a firefighter for successful completion of probationary period and merit increase. You have a resignation of an EMT. You have 6 DPW seasonal laborer resignations and 2 DPW seasonal intern resignations. There's event permits for St. Anselm College 2022 football games on September 1st, 10th, 24th, and October 1st and November 5th. You have the Piscataquag Land Conservancy annual meeting and harvest dinner on September 18th up on Shirley Hill Road. You have Upreach Therapeutic Equestrian Center 30th anniversary celebration on September 24th. And then you have the Worker Bee Fund Brew Fest at 553 Mast Road on October 15th. And then you have the proclamation that was read this evening.
Motion to approve the consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussions or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? None. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. At your next page, you have the 2022 MS1. This is the summary of inventory evaluation. As you can see, it represents a 0.78% increase in net valuation. During the budget process, we assumed 0.5%, so this is better than we assumed. So we would be seeking approval of that and signature by the select board this evening.
Motion to approve the 2022 MS1 summary inventory of valuations and prepared by the assessor. As prepared by the assessor.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Questions? How much does that 2.8 mean?
A few pennies, quite honestly, on the,
Yeah.
I haven't done the calculation, but it really only comes to, it's less than 5 cents, I believe. And with all the changes in revenues that we've been seeing coming from the state and other federal funds that are coming in, I'm sure I'll even out, so we'll have a better idea of that as we get into September and October.
The motion on the floor was by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes.
At tab 7D, you have volunteer appointments. You have a recommendation from Economic Development Council to appoint Sarah Smith Trupakis for a term through March 31st, 2024. And then you have motions to appoint, or recommendations to appoint the Village Bridge Ad Hoc Committee. You have 2 community at large members, Paula Bedard and Andrew Cataract. They both served on the first Bridge Committee. And then you have Casey Leach as the Main Street Program Rep and Cynthia Bover as the Rotary Club representative.
And Collis is the selectman's rep.
You will need to appoint, but yeah, I assume that it'd most likely be Collis, and then we'd start meeting in September.
Okay.
Do you want them one by one?
Pardon me?
Do you want them one by one?
If you could do the EDC one as a
Sure.
separate motion, you could probably do the others together.
I make a motion to appoint Sarah Smith Trupakis as regular member to the EDC Council with a term expiring March 31st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes.
And then I'll make a motion to appoint Andrew Cardette, Paula Bedard, Casey Leach, and Cynthia Bover.
Bover.
What is it?
Bover.
Oh, Bover.
Yep.
As representatives to the Village Ad Hoc Committee with terms expiring May 1st, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next one's ordinances, so I
Yeah,
you probably
let's-
want to
yeah.
hold off on that.
It's close enough. As 6:10, we usually have public comment. Is there anybody here wishes to make public comment this evening? Seeing none, we'll close that portion. So where do you want to go from now? We've got 5 minutes before.
Our 6:15 appointment is here, if you wanted to
Yeah,
start
let's just
with
do that then. Appointment with Jason Hill, Project Manager from TF Moran. Discussion references with the Cross Trail, Rail Trail, license for improvements with Rail Trail right away, 186 Mass Road.
This is at tab 4E. You have small plans in your packets.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Goffstown Select Board. I'm Jason Hill with TF Moran. I'm here with Austin Hawks, who is the applicant and the owner of the property. In summary, this is a parcel that's directly west from the where the new car wash is being constructed on Mass Road. It's 186 Mass Road. Vacant parcel of land. Used to have a residential, well, I think there's a farmhouse there which has been demolished, but we're going before the planning board process now for site plans for Austin to construct a new 4,800 square foot trailer shop, trailer dealership. He's leasing currently in town and looking to, move and grow his business. So this property, the rail trail runs parallel with Mass Road, cutting us off from frontage from Mass Road, as there's, other than the existing driveway crossing, we're proposing to construct a new driveway, demolish the old, construct a new paved driveway for access to the site on the eastern side of the property for two-way traffic. This is a preferred location by DOT due to, as well as the designers, due to just basically better site distance lines away if there's a curve to the west. So it has optimal site distance. We're proposing to construct a two-way drive, paved driveway for access to the parcel, a single two-lane drive as shown on the plans. We've received a variance to develop the parcel from the zoning board because there is no official frontage, so in order to develop the parcel, we received the requisite variance. Now we're seeking a permanent access easement to cover the driveway, proposed driveway. We are also proposing to construct a detention basin along the west side of the site, partially located within the right-of-way for the rail trail. We have had discussions with Dave Pierce preliminary, who's here tonight on another matter, to design and these improvements. We have proposed this detention system will benefit the town. It will also obviously benefit my site in terms of having the drainage system in the front at the lowest portion of the property, as well as we'll be proposing improvements to improve the drainage in the rail trail right away. We're proposing a ditch line that we're proposing to convey water. There's a culvert under the highway, so we'll be proposing some drainage improvements to improve drainage flow here, as well as the general improvement, which is the water that comes off the hillside today. There's a big hillside. It all flows down into this area, and this site in the pond will hold that water and retain that water such that there will be no discharge. We're reducing the amount of water that discharges into the rail trail through these improvements. As such, we're proposing a permanent drainage easement to do the work. We will, if it's approved and acceptable, we will accept full responsibility for future maintenance and such. We're also proposing, as an improvement to the town, which will benefit the town and the rail trail and others, some landscaping features along the rail trail and some street trees, which will enhance the curb appeal, and I'll provide a buffer, the transition between the site and the rail trail. So there's a bunch of old vegetation that'll be removed and be replaced with a nice selection of shrubbery and such. I think it'll look very nice from Mass Road. So otherwise, those two easements are why I'm here seeking approval ultimately for these two easements. And we're meeting with the planning board September 8th. In turn, they will be responsible for reviewing, and ultimately, if everything goes as we'd like to proceed, we would develop the final, any legal documents as such, per the conditions of that ultimate approval. So I'm here just seeking feedback and support for these improvements within the rail trail right away. Thank you.
Do they have to go to ZBA?
They've already been to the zoning board and received the necessary approvals there. The easement across the rail trail, you have enacted those for other sites along the rail trail. I did not see that as a big issue. This is one of the few ones similar to the sign that you did for the car wash a few months ago, where they're actually proposing improvements within the town's right-of-way, within that. I wanted Jason to at least come here and get any feedback or answer any questions you might have before they proceed to the planning board. Ultimately, it would still be the planning board under their site plan provisions, the regulations, that they would be able to ask for modifications to the site plan, but wanted to, give you a chance to ask any questions, and if the board was really opposed to this, this would be a good opportunity to bring that up before they go to the planning board.
How far does the drainage easement go into the rail trail?
Approximately, measured by the scale plan, this is a 30 scale plan, so 25 to 30 feet.
Well, the easement's only 50 feet through there.
The easement is,
The rail trail,
it's either 50 or 60 feet wide.
I think it's 50. David, is it 50?
79.5 feet.
Oh, that one's 79 and a half? And you're okay with this?
May I come
Yeah,
to
come
the
on.
board? I'm David Pierce. I'm an officer with Friends of the Rail Trail, and our 501c3 mission is to provide technical support to the Park Department for building, funding, and construction of the rail trail. These plans are not impeding the flow of traffic on the 10-foot wide rail trail. I'm in favor of the town providing, at the appropriate time, an easement for the driveway. The precedence for that has already been done on other projects.
Right.
And the drainage basin, as Jason explained, the slope is not where the trail would, the slope going down into the basin is not impeding the trail or its
So it's
shoulder.
way off from the trail.
Well, it's immediately abutting the shoulders of the trail,
Okay.
which is not unusual because for most of our rail trail, there are 45-degree slope embankments. So
Thank you.
An embankment going down 6 to 8 feet for a drainage basin is not unusual.
Anybody got any questions for David? Go ahead, Mark.
You want to finish, David, first?
Yeah, I would favor the basin where the engineer has shown rather than on their own property, because the basin then potentially would empty into an existing creek upstream from a historic granite culvert. And that granite culvert is undersized to handle flow. Therefore, it's better to have this drainage basin downstream from a historic culvert.
Thank you. Mark?
David, in past projects that you've completed, you've always put some sort of a fence or rail where this detention pond's going to be. Will there be any protection? I didn't quite notice it on the plan. Is there going to be anything placed there for that?
At this point, like I said, having a slope coming off of where the shoulders of the trail are, going down at 45 is not an unusual situation for over half of our trail. Therefore, this doesn't need any
Okay.
extraordinary protection.
That's fine.
I'll also add that it's designed to be a dry basin, not like a wet pond, so
Okay.
it'll
Yep.
normally be
Yep.
bone dry
you.
grass.
Anybody else, Guy?
No, it's fine.
Jim?
Well, I was gonna say that the easement will include provision that you maintain it, right? That's
Correct, we're proposing to have
okay.
perpetual maintenance runs with the land, of this area.
Anybody else got any questions? Okay. So,
Do we need a motion? or
I guess we
anything?
need a motion that we
We review
we would approve the right-of-way, providing the planning board approves the project.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You said it, I'll make it.
I'll second.
Made by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Next up is the fire chief, I believe.
Yes, you're at tab 5 in your packet.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before you tonight for your review and approval of a master firefighter job description. The job description is a result of collective bargaining negotiations and is contained in the current collective bargaining agreement with IFF Local 3420. The town and the local agreed to create this job description during negotiations, and after several meetings with them and a review by the town administrator, we're bringing it forward for your review and approval. So this master job description accomplishes the following. It provides a recruitment and retention tool that provides an opportunity for our firefighters who strive to obtain higher positions of responsibility and prepare for future career opportunities at a lieutenant or higher rank. It recognizes the experience and skill set of firefighters who obtain 3 or more years service to the Goffstown Fire Department, and also allows them to work in a supervisory position in the absence of a shift officer. It motivates firefighters to prepare for their future advancement. And this particular job description is not intended to create a new position within the fire department. It's an additional job title designation, or really an extension of the firefighter's current job description with added responsibilities. So again, as I stated earlier, it's a great morale incentive for our personnel, as there's another opportunity for them to advance in the organization, where in the past they basically almost had to wait for a lieutenant to retire or leave or something along that. And in the long term, it begins the development of a succession planning strategy for future replacement of officers who retire or move on from the organization.
Questions?
How many members would be available for this at this current time?
Right now, at this current time, there is not any members, but there will be in, I think, November, December timeframe.
Okay.
Scott?
I think Mark has something.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
just- Do you plan on going any further into the job description, Chief? I have just one other question on page 4 of your draft that you presented us this evening.
Okay?
Experience, education, and training and certification requirements. On the first bullet point, number 1, a minimum of 3 years active Goffstown Fire Department service and having worked in acting out classification. Who came up with the 3 years? Was it the union, you guys, or,
I did.
okay,
And I think 3 years is a good time period first to, get them through their first year in probationary period. That second year, they learn the full operations of the department. And then that third year again, and also during the 3-year period, they can go out and seek supervisory courses and training and those types of things.
I'm not in favor of the 3 years. I was looking more at 5, to be honest with you. I mean, we have a very young department chief, as you know. We're still learning. We're learning every day. The turnover that we have is great. I personally don't feel that 3 years is long enough time to be put into that position and given the responsibility. I think at 3 years, they're still learning the job. That's my opinion.
Okay.
There you go.
Chief, just first, can you kind of run through the progression of how this would work? So we talked about the 3 years. Is this an automatic change, like your job title just changes at 3 years, or how does that process work? Do they have to apply?
Yes, they have to apply. They have to meet all the conditions under the experience, education, training, and certification. which is at 3 years' experience, 3 documented classes in leadership and supervision. They have to enroll in the Primex Supervisors Academy within a year appointment. And then again, they have to meet all the certifications that, you know, a normal firefighter would. They have to complete a interview with me, a letter of recommendation from their supervisor, and they have to demonstrate proficiency, you know, with Word programs, and then the NIMS ICS courses, they have to complete 2 of those.
So there's quite a bit of requirement for them to transition into this role.
Yes.
And once they receive it, what kind of pay fluctuation are we talking about?
I don't know if, Danielle, do you recall what something,
We had a whole nother classification for,
Yeah, it was a whole
master.
separate
I don't
scale,
remember what it was.
Yeah.
and I don't remember what the percentage difference is, but maybe while we're discussing, Danielle can.
It's
find
okay, I
out.
don't really need it. I guess my question more so is for budgeting purposes, are you putting a limit on the amount of employees who can move into this role as it is kind of the step prior to lieutenant, or are we leaving it open to who can complete those qualifications?
Well, I think now we'll be able to see who might be eligible for it, you know, in this next budget year, and then budget accordingly for that. I know there's only a few right now because of all the new employees, so year to year, we'll look at it.
And just to clarify, this is 3 years within Goffstown Fire Service.
Yes.
What if we have someone come in who has 10 years of supervisory experience at a different organization?
So I'm looking at this as a internal retention incentive tool for our employee. So someone coming from the outside would have to do 3 years of service.
Even if they expedited and were able to complete all of those other requirements, you don't foresee a point where we would waive that 3-year?
It certainly would be something we could, you know, take under advisement, but there is not a waiver built into this current job description.
that's where I was going. I kind of disagree with that. If we have a master firefighters program that pays more money and it would attract an experienced firefighter who could fill in that, who qualifies, why couldn't we hire somebody from the outside at that master firefighter rate? If he qualifies, I mean, he still has to qualify. There's a lot of things they have to be up on, but why does that person have to wait 3 years if he's an experienced person? There's an opportunity to bring somebody like that on board.
Well, I kind of understand it's the point is for retention and career growth and all of that, but that's where I was going with that question was, you know,
Is it something that would draw an experienced person?
Yeah, I just feel though, it's not, it doesn't meet a fairness part for the firefighter who may be coming here knowing that in 3 years after they do all their other training, there's a potential there that they're gonna, you know, move into a new position that sets them up for future promotions. Like, you know, some lieutenants, especially if they're young ones, may be planning on spending a career with us, and that position would be locked up for many years.
Well, I don't see anything here that doesn't stop every firefighter from becoming a master firefighter. If they decide to chase the,
Correct.
Right, there isn't.
well, that's what I'm saying. So the idea that because we bring somebody from the outside who qualifies for a master firefighter isn't going to impede the flow of somebody else who wants to get it in the department. That doesn't hurt anybody. It just gives you more people as a master firefighters. So, but that's a call that you made, so you're getting my
understand.
my
your-
input, that's all.
Right.
Something,
No, I
something we can use to attract somebody else or an experienced firefighter, why wouldn't we use it?
But if we have a firefighter who's working to try and get to that level, and someone comes in and we put them in that master firefighter's position, then have we not?
You haven't done anything. As soon as that guy finishes it, he could be a master firefighter also.
Yeah, but we just let someone that come in brand new jump ahead of that.
And there could be 5 or 6 guys in line waiting for that, and this one guy comes in.
Waiting for what? Everybody can be a master firefighter, the whole department. All they have to do is make the qualifications. And you could have a whole department of master firefighters. There's no waiting in line. As soon as they get done meeting the qualifications, they can be a master firefighter. I'm not gonna argue it. I mean,
Is that true, chief, or is it based on need? Is there a position, actual position of master firefighter that only does certain things, or is the chairman correct?
There is no limit on how many master firefighters you could have.
And that's how, when we went through this with the CBA
Exactly.
negotiations, that was the concern, I think, that the union brought up, and we assured them that there would not be a limitation, provided they did meet minimum standards and maintain those required certifications.
It's almost like, I think you may be looking at it, it's a supervisor position. It's really not, it's a qualified firefighter position, it's a master firefighter.
So basically, you could have the entire department master firefighters.
Exactly.
And then the only thing that'll come into play after that is seniority on the job, whoever will be in charge.
Well, that's the way it is now.
Correct.
That's what-
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it doesn't make it, that has nothing to do with supervisory, except the one qualification that you said in there, that in duty officer's not there, that master firefighter could step up.
Yeah, it's an incentive for them to start early in their career to set themselves, up for future promotions.
And the negotiated wage matrix was 10% above the firefighter.
Okay.
Chief, I guess the only reason that I bring that up is because it's written out specifically as the very first requirement, the 3 years. So I just want to be, like, what is the possibility that someone could come in with 5, 7 years experience and have all this done already? What's the possibility of that? Like, the realistic chances of that being a thing?
Or just if he's missing 1 or 2 things, he can get it done in a year, you know.
I just don't want to limit us with that language if it is going to be an exception to the rule. I just want to include, think about maybe if you meet the qualifications, you know? But I understand the retention portion as well, so I'm just trying to put it into perspective if we,
It doesn't make a difference, retention, just so if they qualify, they get it.
but I'm saying that's the intention of this, and I want to try to expand it if it's
But it's
feasible.
it's an incentive for them to stay here, because there's not many other departments out there that, have that mid-level
I agree with you
opportunity.
100%. It's also an incentive maybe to attract some experienced people that we're not having that effect right now with how we're doing things. So I think it's something that we should consider. If somebody comes in and they need the completion of the ICS NIMS course 100 and 200, and that's all they're missing, okay, they go and take the course and they gotta wait 3 years before they can become a master firefighter. But just,
How would the probationary, that would come into play though too? Is that a requirement in here that you have to have completed your probationary requirements?
well, 3 years you would.
You would have, right?
Yeah, in that first year, they have that probationary requirement.
So even if someone came in with a significant amount of experience, they wouldn't be eligible for a minimum of a year anyways. I just want to be cautious with that language to not pigeonhole us, especially submitting this to the union, that we can't make any exceptions to that.
Right.
Because it isn't one person getting a job, it's just a transition in your position title, that we might lose opportunity.
Right.
I don't,
But I think we disagree only because, again, an incentive retention program, and I don't think it's fair to a firefighter that, say, is in that second year, he's finishing everything up, and then someone can jump right in and be named in the position also.
Well, it's actually, I don't even know if described as a position, as a pay grade.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
It's really a pay grade.
Right.
Anybody can qualify for that pay grade if they do these items that you've got listed here.
So Chief, let me ask you another question on that note. Because it's the same job description with additional responsibilities, if there was someone who was performing poorly as a master firefighter, could they potentially be demoted from that position?
Yes, anyone can, yep. Any position.
So it really is a different position at that point. I mean, I'm fine with it, I just think it will come up eventually.
Yeah, I think I don't think that's worded properly personally. I think we limit, pigeonhole ourselves. Everybody can get that pay raise if they qualify. Except for somebody who hasn't been still in probationary period. How many people do you
Or
have that have been
given-
here more than 3 years?
We're given 3 years, right?
Yeah.
How many? Like I said, I think the first ones coming up are maybe November, December. I
We have,
think
we have
there's
the first firefighters that came on that have not advanced to lieutenants with that first SAFER grant in 2019, that would be in December. There's a couple that would at least have that 3-year portion. I don't know what other trainings they would need to partake in.
3 years active full-time firefighter, it just says 3 years active. Should it be,
3 years active Goffstown Fire Department.
so should it say 3 years active full-time?
We could, that would define it further.
Do you think that that's necessary, or should it be an hours requirement? Because we have some call people who used to work pretty significant amounts. But I don't know what the numbers look
Well,
like.
there you go
currently.
again, passing part-timer, pass a full-timer.
But I'm saying if they meet an hours requirement, we have call people who can work a pretty significant amount of time. I don't know what the hours look like right now. Typically, at the end of the year, we see an increase. That's what I'm asking. Is it full-time, or is it just you've worked a certain amount of hours in the year?
The position type listed on this one is full-time,
Okay.
and then,
I'd be-
call
I'd be in
firefighters.
favor
up there.
of keeping it full-time.
Well, I think that's what Pete was saying right here. It says a minimum of 3 years active Goffstown Fire Department service. So I'm asking, should it say as a full-time staff member? Or is it just you've worked here for 3 years? It's on page 4, number 1, under the
Yep.
education, experience, and training. Do you know what I mean, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what we're saying, Sean?
Yep,
Okay.
I have no problem adding that.
Do you feel like that's reasonable, or is it just you've worked here for 3 years?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
That just further defines it,
Jim, anything for you?
Well, I'm just wondering, this is a result of the collective bargaining agreement, and in the bargaining agreement, the town and the local agreed to create this job description, is that?
Yes.
And so,
We did not agree on.
so it's not part of the, we could change it if we want, or what?
Yes,
We
yes,
can't.
and this was very clearly laid out during negotiations, that ultimately it would still be the decision of the select board. We did not give up that management right, but we did say that we would work with the union on this.
And then does it have to be ratified by the union again, or?
No, it
It's just-
is your decision,
It's our decision to make that classification.
but I think the fire chief in good faith has worked with the union on coming up with a reasonable job description.
So does it make sense then, I mean, I kind of, rather than just coming up with something, I think should the union, the other side be made aware of it before we
I
make
think
a
you said you
final
worked with the
decision?
union on this, didn't you?
Right, but,
Have you run this past the union members?
Extensively, yes.
but we're suggesting changes and things.
Well, the only change we're making is it's full-time,
That's all we're gonna do? All right.
unless you've
So-
got something you want to change different.
No, I get some of the same concerns. I mean, that, we're not gonna put a waiver in, we're not gonna, for that 3-year thing. I don't know,
No,
that's why I guess I was unclear where we're gonna go with this.
Yeah,
thing.
well, yeah, I guess I look at this position differently than the chief is looking at it. Chief is looking at it as a retention, and it is a retention because somebody can qualify for more money and be there, but I think it's also an incentive to bring people in.
I agree, and then I think 6 people could come in from the outside and get in front of somebody who's waiting, but it's not gonna change his
That
3-year
person's-
requirement
that- no.
anyway, so that part. So it seems to me that way, it attracts people from the outside and it doesn't hurt anybody from the inside, so I see your point, and it makes sense to me.
But let's look at it this way, and I hear you, I'm just playing devil's advocate on this. Someone comes in, brand new, never worked in a fire department before, they finish their year of probation, and in that time, let's say at the end of 2 years, they've completed everything that's a requirement for this, but then they still have to wait another year to complete that. Do you know what I mean? So within that 3-year time period, what if they complete those tasks? That's why I asked the chief the probability of like the time frame of completing that. Because if we take someone off the street and they qualify under 3 years, or we have someone who's new and has worked here their whole career, who meets the requirements, then it is kind of impacting them if they have to wait the full 3 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it just you meet the requirements or no?
I think if this was written 3 years in active fire service,
Doesn't that
Yeah.
include probation? Doesn't that,
It
3 years
would.
is 3 years?
yeah.
What?
But I'm saying if this was written 3 years active fire service, not necessarily Goffstown, but just the 3 years active fire department service, that would, full-time, that would clear up what your question
Yep.
is.
Okay, yeah.
When do we have to finish this?
There's no
Well,
timeline.
But we want to have it done so the guys can start in November.
Yeah, I think, again, when we talked to the union last year, we said we would work on this and have this done sometime in the summer. So I think keeping that promise would be good to have it
Yeah,
done in the next
I-
couple meetings.
Yes, I would agree.
Yep.
So, okay, I'm gonna put this on the burners for the next meeting, and just think about what our input is. And maybe, if anybody else has got anything to come up with, but I think it's also an attractive tool to attract people.
So I'll put this on for old business at your,
Next meeting.
Your
We're
next
gonna
meeting.
finish it next meeting, one way or another.
Okay.
Fair enough?
yep.
Public Works.
Good evening. Got a couple items for you tonight. First one, tab 6 probably. I've got a truck scale bid award. So we had, RFP had been previously approved in June. We advertised and opened bids on the 3rd of August. We received 2 bids for the project, so this is to replace the truck scale at the transfer station. Both bids that we received, one from Fairbanks Scale of Bellingham, Mass., and one from Northeast Scale in Hooksett. Both base bids included replacement of the entire precast concrete deck. So we have a pit-type scale, so there's a concrete deck that sits flush with the ground and inside a concrete vault. So there's a concrete deck, concrete vault, and then there's load cells that are underneath. So the project was to get the new deck replaced and the structural steel underneath the deck, which I think, as you know, a few months ago on our last annual inspection, they recommended actually not putting any fully loaded trucks across the scale until we could get the project done. We had budgeted for this is in CIP. So the project would be to replace those pit internals, the precast deck, and then either some minor repairs to the surrounding vault area on the approach slabs, or some targeted replacements. Fairbanks Scale bid, so base bid against base bid, the low bidder for the project was Fairbanks Scale. If you look on the second page after my memo, I've got just a basic bid tab for you. So the base bid, Fairbanks came in about $5,400 lower than Northeast Scale. just under $65,000 for them. Fairbanks also bid 2 separate options. Northeast Scale did not include any options. We sort of left it. We met with both, we met with any bidders who wanted to bid, and only these 2 companies showed up. But we had a pre-bid, non-mandatory pre-bid walk, and let them know. Really, our goal here was to let them tell us what they think needed to be replaced other than the deck, because obviously we don't do this every day. We're not sure. Fairbanks opted to give a couple options. Northeast did not. First option for Fairbanks Scale would be to replace, not just repair and epoxy. There's steel coping that runs around the outside of the vault, which surrounds where the deck goes, but to also cut back the concrete and replace the concrete as well as the steel, rather than just try to tack weld or pin or epoxy the edge back. They felt it's, we're about 30 years in here for this scale, and unless we want to be back at it and have to budget for the surrounding area to be repaired in a few years and take the scale offline again for that, this is the time to do it once you've got the deck out and all that. The second option they proposed would be to try to limit or reduce the amount of runoff that goes into the pit. And they said if we wanted to raise the entire surrounding area where everything sits by 3 inches to get it up higher, they would do that as well. Here tonight I'm recommending that we do award to Fairbanks as the low bid of the 2 base bids, but I'd also recommend that we exercise option number 1 for that improvements in the concrete and the steel surrounding the deck. I do not feel we should pursue the 3-inch elevation change merely to redirect water and salt-laden water primarily, but once we start moving the elevation of things, we now might have an issue with the scale house itself. Do we now find ourselves a different problem there? I spoke with the transfer station foreman. We have a few ideas about how better to handle the stormwater and potential runoff. I think we can get the 90% solution without that extra cost of the second option. For my memo tonight, I'm recommending awards to Fairbanks Scale, including the option 1, which would come to a grand total of $72,633. That does come in surprisingly under what we had budgeted in CIP last year. We had budgeted $75,000 based on some rough estimates that we'd had from a few different companies. I actually expected, based on inflation in the last year, we were going to come out a little over budget, so I was happy with this, with the result here.
Where's Fairbanks out of?
Bellingham, Mass.
And how's the service going to be out of Bellingham, where Northeast is in Hooksett?
They do quite a bit. I'm sure it won't be, for an emergency situation. It might take them a bit longer, of course, to get here from Hooksett. But they do a fair bit of work in New Hampshire. They gave a pretty good, their bid package, I should say, was outstanding. A lot of pictures and descriptions of our current modes of failure, a lot of references, including a few jobs that were nearly identical, almost exactly the same pit and scale type. So we have a good idea of what they're proposing based on the pictures of that prior work. These really are the 2 biggest people in the state doing scale work. I don't have any qualms that I think either one of them could handle the service end of it.
I've seen Northeast over there working on it.
They have done our annual inspections up until now, and any of the smaller maintenance work. I presume we may want to talk about going forward who we use for our annual. If we have Fairbanks install, maybe we want them to do it. Maybe there's some value in having another company do the inspections there, but it's a small enough cost that it's not like a bid item that we would normally put out. But you hate to award to one company and then have the other guy that didn't get the bid come in to do your inspection. I think might.
And you said Northeast didn't include anything in option 1?
They did not include any options, just the the base replacement.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about those 2 options, why Northeast didn't, what was that, were those 2 options presented to you by Fairbanks?
They were.
They were, and Northeast say that you didn't need it, or were they not even aware of 1 and 2?
I'm not sure. At the pre-bid walkthrough, we did discuss, some of these concerns. Hey, we have some runoff issues. We've got some damage here along the outside of the vault. Northeast included, epoxy repairs to the existing coping in their base bid, which I believe are also in Fairbanks' base bid would just be a skim coat type patch. But we did talk about it as a group, and right on site, it was clear one company felt it would be the way to go, and another felt it wouldn't. So I wasn't surprised to see that they didn't add it. We didn't request any specific options. They designed those.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Motion?
Recommend the approval award replacement truck scale Fairbanks scales of Bellingham, Mass. in the amount of $72,633 to include approach coping replacement.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. One thing I didn't mention, they had a much tighter turnaround time, so I'm hoping to get this done this fall. Not have to go through another winter again. Second item I have for you tonight, a few meetings ago, I mentioned that there's a New Hampshire Clean, it's a national program under the EPA Clean Air Act, but New Hampshire's managed the Diesel Emission Reduction Act program. There's about $1.5 million statewide for a limited number of projects to basically reduce diesel exhaust emissions through a variety of different means. So anything from full equipment replacement to anti-idle aftermarket things that can be added to an existing vehicle, to just an engine swap. I'm sure there's a few others I'm forgetting, but basically the idea is take a highly emitting diesel engine off the road and replace it with something that's cleaner. One of the options is replacement with electric vehicles. So one of the first heavy truck applications for electric vehicles has been curbside refuse trucks. They don't have as much of a requirement from an around-the-clock perspective as like a plow truck would. That's still kind of not figured out, but refuse trucks are on a very set cycle. We run those 4 days a week, 9 to 10 hours a day. The duty cycle of a curbside truck is a lot of accelerations and a lot of stops, so it's all day long. Stop, start, stop, start. One of the beauties of an electric vehicle is that it has regenerative braking, so you're using the engine itself, or the system itself to slow the vehicle, so you're charging the batteries as you brake. Each time you brake, it's adding some power back in to the battery load. The range is improving on electric vehicles, so right now our daily range can be anywhere from about 110, 120 to 130 miles on these trucks for our four curbside routes, which is right about at the daily limit for electric vehicles. By the time any kind of delivery would happen, I'm presuming the battery tech is going to keep improving, of course, as more manufacturers get involved. The biggest news in the EV heavy truck world is Mack has just introduced their version. I think it's called the LR.
I think that'd be a great thing to try in 5-6 years from now when they've all tried them out. If you talk to Donnie Ball, you know Donnie Ball?
Mhm.
Talk to him about stop and go on electric, and he's had nothing but problems with his buses that using the electric buses right now. So I think it's something that in the future it sounds good, but I think it's still got needs some work to be done. I don't want to be a guinea pig either.
One of the benefits of the program now is you can get up to 40 for a full conversion. You can get about 45% of up to 45% of the replacement cost. The further we go into this, I'm sure that number is going to taper down to the rest of the program. I think is a 25% max. So, over time it becomes less valuable to us to try to use this particular program anyway to replace. I can't speak to Mr. Ball's experience. I don't know what they're running, for brand, model, age. I don't know how long they've had it.
So are you asking to apply for the grant?
That would be the request tonight, would be to make an application to replace one of our trucks, and then if we were awarded, I'd come back
Well,
to
wait a minute, now,
and
you
talk
said,
about it.
you said there was other things that it could be used for, besides replacing a truck. So are you going for this grant to replace a truck? Is that what this is for?
That would be the request tonight.
With an electric vehicle?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I won't vote for it.
Yeah. There's some
No,
other.
It's too early for that.
Is there a diesel truck that's on its last legs?
So a couple of requirements of the program. We don't have anything that's super ancient. The match for a diesel to diesel transition, I think, is the 25% level, so it's less, less worthwhile to try to replace something ahead of cycle. They're looking for a truck that's not already within the window of replacement. So it's got to be something that will be out a couple of years in our CIP anyway. There's just based on award and lead times, I think we're talking already it would be a 24 model year, potentially as late as a 25 delivery. So, some cities have been using electric curbside for almost 10 years now, so it's certainly not a brand new tech. But I think, as I mentioned a few months ago, one of the things that going forward I think we're going to have to look at anyway is hanging on to keeping a fourth truck instead of turning in or trading in or selling off one of these outgoing or oldest vehicles. I think to go from a fleet of 3 to a fleet of 4 is going to be necessary. We're finding a lot of downtime just based on the emissions control systems of these diesel engines that tend to be less reliable. And then the routes are getting longer and more stops, so we're starting to stress that piece.
I think I remember this afternoon reading somewhere that you can refuse it even if you're awarded the grant.
Yes, yeah, there's no requirement. It's not one of those where if you apply for it, you have to take it. Could certainly see, there's not a lot of money, $1.5 million is nothing to sniff at, but that's not a lot of money to spread out for the whole state. So.
I guess my thought is, what's the harm in applying for it, and you can check out the problems and this and that, and we can refuse it if we want to.
I don't think there's any harm in applying for it, but you already heard if he applies for it and gets it, he wants to buy an electric trash truck.
But he can refuse it if we don't have to give him the authority to purchase it at that time.
Correct. Yeah.
We do.
No, we have the right to say, yeah.
Well, and you're kind of telling him to go ahead and apply for
Yeah.
it, but you're giving him the go-ahead to go for an electric trash truck.
No, didn't you just say that you can say no after you've got the award?
That's true. I think I think what the chairman's trying to say is if best case scenario, the state has enough money, or they want to make a project out of this and we're the #1 awardee, and they say, okay, you can have 45% of a new truck. Even in that best case scenario, the board doesn't want to do it, then why bother? If I'm
That's
not
exactly.
paraphrasing properly. But.
So it may have repercussions even if we say no.
Only my time wasted, but I think the state understands with this program in particular, where it's not a 90% match, I think they know people are going to drop off. What they have in this, they've already announced they're going to do a second round of awards. So they're going to have a phase 1 award window, probably to look for anybody dropping out, and then they will say if there's any money left, we'll go to a phase 2 a month later, I think it is. But so I think there's no necessary, there's no harm in it, but if the board would, even in the best case, if the board wouldn't go forward with a plan, then there's really no point in applying for it.
Well, these guys may want to go.
Well, I
for
just
it.
said
Just
I
me,
heard-
I'm not going for
I
it.
heard 1 no, I didn't hear 4 no's or 5
Yeah.
no's, so that's why I said that. But,
There's, some of the other benefits, talking about a much more efficient source of locomotion. So, diesel engines about 40% efficient. Electric vehicles are about 75% of the power that you're putting in is actually going to moving the vehicle, not lost to friction, noise, whatever.
So what you're doing now is you're approving funding to go for an electric trash truck, because he's giving you all the figures on it, how it works and everything.
but
I understand what you're saying. When it comes time, you can say no.
Right.
But that'd be kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth, isn't it? Go ahead and
No,
get the grant,
because-
I'll let you know if you can buy the truck.
No, because it says up to 45%. If we get 20%, then it doesn't make it feasible, or we find out that there are more concrete reasons why not to do it, we could say no. I worry that in the future, we try to get these grants, they may say no, because we put them through all that and then said no. But it is an option, so I guess I was just thinking that I certainly don't feel like I have all the information about electric garbage trucks. So what's the harm in saying, go ahead and try it, and then you know, what, months we, as, you know, a period of months we
It's a
get?
pretty quick turnaround. I think they're talking about November 1st, Derek, does that ring a bell maybe?
So the submission is September 9th, and I don't recall.
I think the first award is announced November 1st or somewhere in that range. It is a quick turn, small window of opportunity, that's why.
What
it's
town
highlighted.
has those now, what city?
So, Hartford, Connecticut, I think is the closest city that has them. I think we'd be the first in New Hampshire to have a,
It's actually October 1st, it says.
October 1st, okay.
October 1st would be the round one notification of award. And then there'd be a second if there's.
And what's it cost?
to purchase a new. So, right now, we, let's see, we were at 335,000, I think, for this most recent bid that we awarded, that we won't see probably until sometime at the end of '23.
No, but you don't know what an electric one's gonna cost, though, do you?
Correct. So I just want to give that, this is what we pay now. Right now, electric is between 500,000 and 600,000, depending on manufacturer and, you know, body type.
And you're
all
gonna
that,
get
so-
45% of that.
Right, so it's a little bit more than what diesel would
Right.
cost now.
I
If
think
we got
too.
45, but if we got 20%, it doesn't make sense to me, but.
If we got 45, you're still talking 300,000, so.
I think to,
Right.
Selectman Craig's point earlier, if the grant award was, okay, yes, but we didn't have enough money, you get 10% towards it, I'm not sure I would recommend that purchase now. It's not enough of a cheese dangle. You know, one of the benefits, obviously, going forward to the operating budget is both fuel savings and then maintenance costs are significantly less for electric vehicles, so.
We can't really do any maintenance on, right?
Well, certainly we don't have any battery technicians. There's a training piece, of course, that will go
And where would
along
be
with
the
it.
closest place you could take it for service?
So Mac's got a service center in Massachusetts, northern Mass, I can't remember the city, they just announced a few months ago. So if it was a Mac vehicle, that'd be the closest. I think Crane Carrier is Pennsylvania maybe, so if you have battery issues, you know, for that particular model, you know, it's a bit of a truck. You know, there is some unknown, nothing's free in this world, so if you're, you know, looking to cut emissions of our fleet, that's the direction we're gonna be going at some point. Nobody's targeted any kind of date in mind. A lot of cities are saying, okay, I'm gonna be 50% by 2040 or 100% by 2050, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't think we're ready to go there. The curbside trucks, though, are somewhat of a proven model elsewhere. I think we could target those and certainly say, I'd like to be, with our next cycle of replacements, going this way. We replace right now, we have 3 trucks, as I mentioned. I'd like to get to a 4th, just so we have, you know, that backup. Maybe in particular, if we're going to electric, to have that extra, you know, sense of safety that we have in an additional vehicle. We have 3 trucks we replace about every 3 to 4 years, so that's kind of the cycle. Once they're about 10, 11 years old, it's time to move on to a newer vehicle.
Anybody else? Questions? No?
Oh, I have a lot of questions.
You have questions?
Yes, I do.
Go for it.
Thanks. Well, let me figure out. The first one is the reporting. Has the state given you any kind of guidance? I didn't really see it in here of what the reporting requirements would be.
Oh, on the back
this?
end, I think it's an annual,
Because it's a federal and then a
Yep.
state.
I think it's
So does
in
the state hold the federal component or?
It's, I think, managed, so it's a federally dispersed program managed by the state, so DES manages. There is a reporting component in the app, I just can't remember what page it's on.
And then this is just a lump sum. So there's no sort of feeder program from the state that if this truck then broke down or was a huge, this is the program where we'd have to turn in our old truck.
Yep.
So we're like making a trade with no guarantee that this will work out.
That's right. So they want the old engine off the road
Mm-hmm.
permanently. So there's actually, you know, some proof requirements. You have to actually
Uh-huh.
show that it's been scrapped.
And then furthermore, is the state providing any incentives for communities doing this, or is it just giving them the money? Like no any kind of additional year over year, anything like that? For
Right
being
now,
sort
that's
of a
it
guinea
for the
pig?
program. So they've got their, you know, their disbursement amount from the, like, I think it's from the.
So given your scenario of potentially applying for it, seeing what kind of percentage we could get, best case scenario, it's 45%, which is about almost, what about what we pay now for a truck? Let's say the electric truck doesn't work, then we have to, first of all, how would we even possibly try to sell it? Any idea?
I'd say throw it on municipal.
There's so many unknowns with this right
But
now.
then,
because
what I'm
nobody's
saying is
got
then
it.
we still have to buy another one,
Right,
right?
so in theory, you've got a warranty with any new vehicle purchase, right? So we'd be looking at weighing our options. It would be a go out to bid scenario. You have 4 or 5 different vendors, obviously, that are trying to make inroads everywhere in the Northeast, North America. Some Canadian companies that have been doing it for a while. So you receive your bids. Each one of those, we're gonna have a warranty requirement. So if we don't like the warranty terms, at that point, we would maybe take a pass on it, but
So is there any requirement for the length of time for which we have to keep this vehicle based on the state's?
let's
Funds?
see, there is. Okay, so status reports, sorry, as I look down, status reports quarterly for the first 2 years, and then an annual report till the 5th year. As far as keeping of vehicles, I think it's got to be in service. Sorry, I should have tabbed out some of this. There is a requirement in that app that you've got a copy of in the packet,
I
but.
couldn't find it.
This is thrilling for the folks at home, I'm sure, as I page around here looking for this, but yes, there is. Normally, we would be keeping it longer than. So I didn't note
What
it.
happens if it's a lemon and the thing just doesn't work out? We have to give the 45,000 back, 45% back? So
I
if this
think,
isn't working out for our town, we're getting rid of it.
I think
That's,
the
yeah,
length,
that's why I meant the requirement. So if we
Yeah.
had to get rid of it earlier, let's say it just doesn't work for us at all, or it's terrible in the snow or something, can we sell it? And then, but then we've made a profit essentially? I mean, that sounds kind of
the
crazy.
I don't
language
think you
in
can
there
do that.
says, may be subject to, a clawback of a portion of. So there would be, I'm sure, some wrangling.
Well, there's a
If we-
lot of
if we
ifs and
turned it
buts
in
in this
early,
deal.
but like any grant project, if you don't perform, it's all right at the bargain.
So even though none of us are sold on this, you're still willing to put your time up to apply for it just to see what happens?
I think so. I think it's the way to go. It's the way everybody is going.
Not everybody. Nobody in New Hampshire's got it. Nobody in Massachusetts.
You
The
know-
closest was in Connecticut.
I don't mean they've already gone there. I mean, that's the way it's going, right? We're gonna have electric vehicles probably across all the fleet, let alone just curbside trucks. That's the first step. I personally, think it's a good deal going forward, both for operation and maintenance, emissions, fuel consumption. We're saving and we're doing something right. It's just a matter of when you wanna do it. Do you wanna be in the middle of the pack, lead pack, so we can get some of this 45%, or trail and let everybody else fall on their face, or realize
Or
that
lose
it's-
45%.
or realize it's a good deal, right? So, we're not sitting on a hunk of, battery worth nothing if we don't like it, or if things go wrong outside the warranty period. We're already, a few years into ownership at that point. There is residual value. There's already companies that are, EVs have been around long enough that there are companies that are powering these early vehicles. So I'm sure that's going to be the same with heavy trucks. Once they've been around long enough that the batteries need replacement, there'll be companies that do that. And there's one of the beauties of an EV is there's a lot fewer moving parts and a lot less complex systems than there are in a diesel-powered engine. Once you tack on the turbos and the emissions controls and all that, there's a lot of extra stuff that has to go wrong. So in theory, there's less to it. If something goes wrong outside the warranty, that's a decision to make. Just like everything else we own, do we repair it? Do we look to sell it and cut our losses and go backwards, with that particular vehicle? By this point now, we're talking 7-8 years from now, because it's gonna be a couple years for delivery, and now we're outside the warranty window of any truck. So now we're going on almost a decade from now, finding out that we've either made a mistake or we haven't, when we have to make that decision. So I think by then, there'll be even more people that have moved on this. So I think it's just a matter of what the board's appetite for being an earlier mover versus a wait and see.
I'll be the bad guy.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna make a motion that we do not move forward with this grant and, forget about the whole thing.
I'll second it. because I don't believe in it.
I mean, we see it all the time with cars or trucks or any vehicle. I mean, the first year, cars come out, they have all kinds of troubles with them. The second, third, fourth years, they kind of iron out the problems, they fix everything, everything gets better. Same thing with trucks. I mean, I see it in fire trucks all the time, you know? I'm just not in favor of it, not yet. Let's, somebody else around here get something, and we can go look at it. We can share their thoughts and comments back and forth, and
One thing that bothers me is that we've heard that Sanford, Connecticut has had them, and they are around, and we haven't had one word about how they're performing, I guess.
That was gonna be my question. I'm for sure not sold about this, on this, but I'm interested in learning more about it. Do you know anybody, like can you contact them and have them?
I think the
Certainly.
problem is the timing.
Yeah, it's
Right.
terrible timing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, I'm not sold on it, so if you wanna put in the work to do this, it's gonna be a really hard sell to get us to vote on this, even if we were awarded the 45%. I mean, I don't know that we'll have enough information even at that point to make a decision. But I mean, I guess I'm interested in learning more.
Yeah, the problem is you don't know what the maintenance cost is 5, 6 years down the road,
Right.
because they've had so many problems with batteries. You heard all the horror stories. It cost, $7,000, $8,000 on a car to replace the batteries, so.
But at least my feeling is we've got to get off of the diesel, and, I believe that 100%, but.
But do
I'm
we gotta
scared-
be the
I'm afraid
first
of
ones?
Huh?
We gotta be the
Well,
first
we're
ones
canaries
in the
that,
Northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hartford, Connecticut's got them. They got a city, and they're right there,
Well, if I had seen it, if I could see a track record of these things, and I could be, yeah. I'm glad we talked about this, because I really don't know anything about them, but I'm hearing some of the things that are coming up scare me, so, but I think it's a good idea in concept.
the concept's great. The timing's off. I don't think we should vote for something if the grant is tied to an electric vehicle. Because there's not enough information. If the monies goes to other reduction type, there are other things out there we can do to reduce, like you said, idle time, things like that help reduce emissions. That you said those funds could be used for, is that correct?
They do have other programs. Most every engine that we have currently is too new to take advantage of what they have on the table. Most everything we've got has anti-idle devices. Some of the if you want to start talking about replacing the grader, to get that engine off the road, I suppose we could, but I think, bang for the buck, this is where it's at. I think you have a motion on the table, so I'm not even supposed to probably be talking.
No,
right
not
now,
really.
but-
Jim,
but-
you had a
but,
question? Everybody's got more questions.
The fleet numbers that are out there, right, so they've been around 10 years plus, nationwide. They're talking 25 to 40% less O&M costs per year, so that's the answer. That's what's out there. Talked about the efficiency, value of it, but the fuel savings alone is significant. These things get 3 to 5 miles a gallon, so we're talking $100,000 in fuel just for our curbside and our long-haul tractor trailer a year.
Providing it works.
I have a logistics question. Even if you were to apply to this, convince all of us that this was a great idea and we should do it, because the purchase of a new truck would have to be in the budget, you'd also therefore have to convince the budget committee as well to utilize those funds, correct?
So we would. It's a reimbursement program, so yeah, we'd have to include it with the annual budget
Okay.
for 20.
With an offset, it'd
For
be an
20.
expense with an offsetting revenue.
Yep.
Well, who knows how much.
Right, so we'd be short cycling one of the vehicles that's in CIP at this point.
And if you came in and you only got 25%, would you still be going for it?
Makes the math a little harder. I would hesitate to say no, because this is the way I want to go with this particular type of vehicle in the future. So expect when those come up in CIP, this is going to be the request. It'll just be probably, unless this program's still offering this much, whatever that match is at that time, or 100% of the cost. Because people are still doing it.
Let's handle this motion that's on the
Right.
floor now. The motion is to not recommend applying for the grant. Is that correct? Everybody understands that?
Correct.
Okay. Who is in favor of the motion to not apply for the grant? I am. So that kills that. Look, that just,
Yeah.
two and two doesn't, that's,
Was it 2-2?
well, didn't vote? Did you vote?
Well, you only asked who's
Oh.
in favor of not applying for the grant.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Right.
Two. Who's against?
I am.
So it's 2-2.
2, that's what I was asking.
Right.
Okay?
I mean, I'm interested in trying for the grant, who knows, could be great. It would take a lot of convincing to get me to accept it, though.
But I think, okay,
Yeah, that's the way I
That's
feel.
all.
huh?
That's the way I feel too. I
So
think-
is that a motion?
A motion to
Apply for the grant.
apply for the grant, sure.
And you're
I'll make that
seconding
motion.
it.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? I speak to the motion because we've already heard that if that motion passes, it's to buy an electric truck that we know nothing about. We haven't done any research.
Wait, if the motion passes? No, I'm
Well,
making
yeah,
a
that's-
motion to apply for the grant, not to
Which-
accept grant money, to apply for the grant.
Right.
We then still have to accept
Which is
it.
designated to buy an electric trash truck.
Correct, yes, put in a grant application to see what kind of funding we could potentially get for this vehicle that we need to learn a lot more about before I personally would consider approving those funds and to agree to get an electric
Okay,
truck.
we got
I
it.
don't want to miss the grant opportunity
Okay, we know what the
to
motion
give it a
is.
shot.
So all in favor of the motion?
All right.
All right.
Opposed?
Did one.
That's surprising.
I want to have the motion in front of me. I want to have the information in front of me before I say yes.
Okay.
And we don't have that. What happens now? Dies for now?
Well, it's a September 9th, so I think it would die unless for some reason the state awarded no money and they went out for a second round.
When's our next meeting?
However, they don't have a separate application period for that. They really go back to the well of applications that they already have in their hand. I would say the one thing about applying for the grant is it is subject to appropriation at town meeting, so it would still have to come back to you of if you were gonna conditionally accept it, and it would also need to pass the budget committee to appropriate funds for a truck that is in the out years of a CIP matrix.
Well, how far out are you talking?
The requirements are,
So
I thought you said 2 years.
we've got a 2012, that's the one we just
Right.
awarded bids to replace. We've got a 2016 and we have a 2019. So the 2016 is scheduled for 2026 right now, and the 19 probably will be a 2029 or 2030 replacement.
But how soon do you have to spend the money?
2023.
So we'd
Yeah.
be
So
short
it'd be in
cycling
next
the-
year's, it'd be in next year's budget, and the sell to you and the budget committee would be, you're bringing it forward in the CIP matrix to take advantage of grant funds awarded for a specific purpose
gonna
that's
be a
being
hard
presented.
Okay. And when's our next meeting?
September 12th,
And it's gotta be in by the 9th?
yes. Unless you'd like to hold the meeting before.
Well, I just, Collis would probably make the difference. And if we can get Collis to do even a Zoom or Teams meeting or something.
We could have one, I could see about doing a meeting next week. Again, we would need I would need a quorum present, but I could have him and at least one other member participate telephonically. I can check with Collis.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
What
Now give Jim
additional,
a chance to do some more research.
what additional information would you like? That's the question, I guess. I'd want to make sure I come with what you need.
Mark?
Just reading down the background information and stuff here, Adam. It says companies in northern climates such as Chicago and New York with good results in the last 7 years. They seem to have some history with these trucks. Can you check with New York and see what,
Chicago would be a good one, because that's
Chi-
got, Windy City's got,
yeah,
gets
even
pretty cold
colder.
there.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
also very flat, so keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I picked New York, I'd like to see what New York has to say, because they're pretty rough and tough on stuff, and they, you know, I just,
Get that to us electronically would be great.
Can do.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, he does have one more item at,
Oh, bike lane markings?
6C.
Yes, so David and Paula, I think, are still here, so if you need more information on the rail trail portion of this request, I'm sure they can jump in. We met recently with membership from both the Goffstown and the New Boston Rail Trail, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, and Department of Transportation. The idea is to sort of finalize a method to get from one rail trail to the other, provide full connectivity all the way to Manchester. It's probably a bigger project in the future, something that Southern New Hampshire would have to get involved, recommend to the DOT to include in a 10-year plan for their stretch of North Mass after it transitions at Church Street to outside the urban compact where the town doesn't maintain. But in the interim, the DOT has said they'd be amenable to just marking the wide breakdown lanes on 114 as a bike lane, dedicated bike lane. It's a little similar marking to the Sharrows that we have on Main Street now, but it's different because it's it would be a dedicated bike lane off the travel way for cars that would not be a shared lane, unlike Main Street and North Mass currently are. So they said if, we would need a maintenance agreement, but we'd have to agree that we're gonna pay for the cost to do it. We'd actually do the markings or pay for somebody to do the
Not huge
markings
money.
ourselves. No, under 1,000, I We think. for put, the- yeah, less than 1,000. We have the
Yeah.
budget for that.
Between
somewhere.
paint and,
labor, we can make it happen. The, kind of to bump on that, at the same time, it would make sense, right now, the preferred actual bike path would not be Main to North Mass, it really would be Church Street. So we could add some Sharrow markings on Church Street if the board sees fit. That's a little bit less volume, of course, and a little safer for bikes. Once Church Street's rebuilt in a few years, that will be probably marked as the preferred bike lane for rail trail users. And we're not sure yet if we've got the right-of-way width to be able to allow two sidewalks plus a bike lane plus travel way, so we might have to go down to one sidewalk and one bike lane, or maybe we do Sharrows and just make it all work. But that's kind of next level type stuff. But for right now, the request would be, allow me to write a letter to the DOT requesting permission to paint bike symbols on the breakdown lanes of 114 north of Church Street, all the way to Parker Road, and then paint Sharrows on Parker Road itself and on Church Street to kind of make that full connection. Rail Trail probably will be coming to you at some point for signage and that kind of thing, but again, this would be the interim solution before a real project down the road comes forth.
You want to make the motion?
Yep. I'll make a motion to authorize the Director of Public Works to draft a letter to the NHDOT for the rail trail bike marking.
second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to 7E. Is that right?
Yes, we left off on the town administrator's report at 7E. This is the vote on adoption of town ordinances. There are 3 proposed ordinances this evening. One is an amendment to the existing rail trail ordinance. This would clarify that Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes can be used on the rail trail, and Class 3 e-bikes are prohibited. Additionally, in your package, David Pierce has provided a sample of a label that could be affixed to current signage indicating that Class 1 and Class 2, as well as those are allowed and the Class 3 is prohibited, for a cost of about $210, which we would find in either Parks and Rec or the Town Hall budget. So you have that ordinance, and then you have a Stephen Drive speed limit ordinance, reducing speed down to 25 miles an hour, and then the Maple Ave bus entry during school zone hours ordinance.
So let's take them one at a time.
I'll make a motion to amend the rail trail ordinance as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And can I, is it okay to move forward with the labels for the signs? So we
Oh,
can
yeah,
provide that?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
I thought that was all part of it.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance entitled Stephen Drive Speed Limit Ordinance as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance entitled Maple Avenue Bus Entry Only During School Zone Hours Ordinance as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. I have discussion on this.
Okay.
The school, I was contacted by Scott Gross, and I think you said Scott came in too. And there's some concern that this might not work. And if it doesn't work, what do we do? Do we rescind the ordinance? What's the proper procedure on that?
Would be to hold 2 public hearings to
Again.
amend the ordinance, yes.
Right.
So I remember we had some discussion about the Highway Safety Committee being able to present a change if it doesn't work out, that they wouldn't have to wait for their quarterly recommendation. Remember we talked about that?
They could present that, but
Right.
the law on ordinances
Right, we would still have to
require
do
the 2
that,
public hearings.
But they wouldn't have to
And then a
wait.
vote, so I'm talking, again, 10 weeks or 6
You
weeks?
can shorten it a little bit because the public hearings have to be 10 days apart, so if you were willing to meet off schedule and vote, you could do it as quick as 20 days. That's the quickest that you could adopt an ordinance.
Tommy, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name?
Thomas Hammond, Goffstown Police Department.
There you go. So I know there's been some discussion at PD about this with the school. Are you okay with the way it came out? Are we doing the right thing, or?
I think we have to try. One of the school's chief concerns was employees getting to school on time. There are time constraints of when certain hourly employees need to be there, and their concern is that due to a traffic backup on any one of the streets to stack onto the live parking would cause them to be late. I think if we find that to be a problem, we could always come back to the ordinance and seek some type of an ability to provide an exception for a placard or other type of a allowance to let the school staff also use that entrance.
So some kind of an item to designate that they're employee of the, yeah,
Potentially.
okay. And how are we set on the routes? Run me through the first week.
How about the next 12 hours here? If we're successful here, I have a video that's ready to go, that I've been in contact with that IT department, and with Derek's permission to put it on the town website in the front page, front and center, and then all traffic would be routed to the town website where that video will be. And that video is turn-by-turn directions, and as well as an explanation of the issue, but turn-by-turn directions for not only High to Smith to Maple, but also Page to Winter to Heather to Maple. So 2 different locations to stack vehicles on, and again, there's turn-by-turn directions there. So my job first thing tomorrow, pending a successful vote here, would be to start advertising as quickly and as widely as possible to get as much word out as possible in this week here.
And you're gonna feature that on Facebook and
Everywhere.
everything?
Everywhere we can possibly get it out there is what we want to do to try to educate the new families coming in. And that's including conversations with the principal and Superintendent Balke as well. He'll be preparing a video to coincide with ours to put out so where he can specifically get to the Maple Ave families.
Go ahead, Ken.
So within the placard being kind of an alternative, that would still be within the ordinance requirements, so you wouldn't have to come back for that at all, correct? That would be,
That we would have to check on.
okay.
I know that when we designated it as a bus entry only, we were pretty specific in the wording. There might need to be some slight modification that comes back to you at some point, if that problem needs that solution.
So then I guess my question for the solution is, have we thought about any kind of central place or way to direct either the staff to provide feedback on the process, or I don't know if we necessarily want to open it up to the greater general public, but do we have anywhere to, like, where do we direct people who have questions, comments, and concerns? Because, you know, with the change, there'll be a little bit of growing pain.
I think it's going to be an
How are we
active
pushing that?
conversation between the chief and the school and Superintendent Balke as well, to say, how are we doing day one, day two? I mean, we all know that school traffic on the first week and a half of school is not really a good outlier to show how the rest of the year is going to go. So we have to get past this first week or two of school to see how things are going to level out. And then it'll be an active conversation during that whole time period and beyond of how we're doing.
And then we had also discussed signage to go along with that. Is that ready to go for?
Yes, I've been working with the DPW director to get signboards between now and the start of school, messaging directed them to the website of learn more about it here, and then day one of school and beyond, turn here for this, turn here for this, and as much signage as possible, temporary signage until the permanent signage can arrive for the end of Maple Ave. But yes, a lot of signage.
I think training is going to be the biggest thing.
But once they get it,
Yeah, once they get it.
They'll get it.
And hopefully it works, and then they'll agree with it.
correct.
So, all right. Anybody else?
No, I think we just have to be ready to adjust if we need to, but we gotta try it.
Okay, so who made the motion toward the line?
Motion, Mark,
Kelly
Vice
made
Chair
it.
Moyer did and Selectman Lemay.
Any more discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
License agreement?
Yes, so
Tab F.
at tab 7F, you have, the first one is a license agreement. This is for, let's see, just gotta remember which one's which. So the first one is for the benefit of the town. Greg's Falls Substation during the reconstruction project discussed at Conservation. It was mentioned that the town would need access to Angel Point for potentially for fire or emergency services. Again, the state of New Hampshire property is over there, and sometimes they have to access that. PSNH required a license agreement for that, so you have that. This has been reviewed by our insurance provider, and changes were made to that. And then on the last page is a little map. It didn't come out great, but it kind of shows where the access would be behind the new substation once that construction's completed.
Yeah, great map.
What's the length on this, Derek?
This would be renewed annually.
Okay.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the licensing agreement between the Public Service Company of New Hampshire, Eversource Energy, and the town of Goffstown, allowing town access for emergency response on Glen Lake through the PSNH property at Greg's substation.
Seconded by Jim, I saw that. I heard you.
It was coming.
No, I heard you. Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes 4-0.
So at tab G, you have another license agreement, but this is from the town to Benefit Public Service of New Hampshire. They're currently in the process of rebuilding their 115 kilovolt transmission line that runs between Hillsborough and Greg's Fall. This runs over the Goffstown Rail Trail. It is existing there, and there is an existing pole within the town's right-of-way. They had license agreement with B&M Railroad, but that did not get formalized in the town when we purchased that. So they're seeking to formalize that agreement as they rebuild that line.
And they pay us $200 a year for that?
Yes, they would with annual escalation clause.
I'll make that motion for the license agreement.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes 4-0.
At tab 7H, you have a memo from the finance director. This is a 12 to 15-year-old shredder unit that we have in town hall that had failed. We had replaced it. Normally, it would go to the transfer station. The finance director had requested that we dispose of it to her for personal use. Normally, if there's any other employee, the finance director has authority under purchasing policy to dispose of excess, but as she was requesting it, felt it appropriate to come to your board. Again, this is for an office setting on a large scale. This, it leaks oil, it doesn't have a good use within an office setting or any of the other departments. However, to do a few items at home, it's not a big deal. Daniela specifically said she would take it as is, and then if you did not think that was appropriate, we'll be sending it down to the transfer station instead.
I don't want to see bills for oil on the carpet or anything.
We can do this, we can give her an electric garbage truck if it doesn't.
I'll make a motion to authorize the finance director to take ownership of the broken shredder for personal use.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Just don't give it back.
She'll actually get room back in her office because it's been in there for probably 6 months now. The next item is CIP IT network project. This is seeking your approval to extend our First Light fiber. What we currently have, this would provide additional network at the Mountain View Middle School, Station 17, as well as additional connections with the tower. So this would provide us additional network locations, as well as provide us a fiber extension for the radio project. Our request is to do it with our existing fiber company, First Light Fiber. It has an upfront cost of not to exceed $153,161. That is for the construction and all the fiber costs to run all that fiber. And then there would be a monthly increase of about $1,300 a month. The other alternative that First Light did provide us is no upfront cost, but that would have an increase of almost $4,000 a month in operational in our monthly invoice. So,
But you have the money in the budget.
yes, we do. In our CIP line, as you'll recall, we did quite a bit of hardware and network switching for our core infrastructure. And that came into about $163,000. We had some licensing and some various other expenses, but we currently have almost $175,000 left in that CIP line. So the request tonight is not to exceed $153,161.
Mark, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to authorize town administrator to enter into agreement with First Light Fiber to extend the town's fiber optics network as presented with an upfront cost not to exceed $153,161.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At 7G, you have a brief memo from the IT,
Jay.
that's not his title on the memo. He's the IT director now. This is a grant opportunity for reimbursement for PD Cruiser mobile technology. This is the laptops that live in the cruisers. There is a state New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety grant that we could recover up to $6,500 for those units that are already installed. So we're just seeking your authorization to submit that grant application.
Make a motion that we authorize the IT director to submit a grant to the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And then I just had, Danielle had
Yep.
2 items that I want you real quick.
Hope she's got some good news.
I think so. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, Kelly. Oh, Kelly.
All right, so I've got 2 quick items for you tonight. The first one is an update on the fuel. We had discussed locking in a rate for oil. The town only uses approximately 3,800 gallons of oil, between 3,600 and 3,800 a year. So it's pretty minor for us, but we were waiting on a rate. I did get some information today. I don't have a contract yet. They're going to forward me a draft contract tomorrow, but it's actually looking lower than our current year's rate. So I'd like permission to lock in or negotiate to lock in for a fair market value.
Jim,
Make that
you
motion.
make that motion?
I
Yes.
move that we lock in at the rate lower than the current rate as requested.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the second item is really just a heads up, it doesn't require a motion. I just wanted to let you know that the auditors have come in, they've begun the audit for the 21 year, and they wanted me to let you know that there's been some changes in the audit procedures that they're required to follow. One of those changes is they have to communicate directly with the governing body for certain items. So right up front in the audit, when they're preparing their audit structure, how they're gonna go about the audit itself, they have to identify certain risks. And 2 items that they've identified, that they have identified for every single audit, for every single community, because it's just always there, is the management override of internal controls, which could potentially happen at any site, or recognition of revenue, if we didn't recognize revenue the way we were supposed to. So those 2 items are items that they're planning to investigate, as they always do. They have every single year. It's never been an issue, but they wanted us to let you know that they're gonna now send you an email that individually notifies you that they're going to be looking into those items, and they just didn't want anybody to think that this was a change or that it's a new risk. So that's just an FYI that you'll be seeing that this week.
And some of you may receive emails with questionnaires as well as members of the governing body, so if you could just keep an eye out for that.
Yes,
Okay,
that's it.
that's it. Thank you. Under new business, we received an email reference to firework ordinance. I'm going to ask Derek to, at our next meeting, have a copy of the ordinance and a copy of the letter so we can review our fireworks ordinance.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else got any new business?
No.
Okay. Old business, how about anybody got any old business? You might mention, I think we did, that Jim, you're coming Thursday night, hopefully?
I am.
Good. Mark, you gonna try?
Yep, I'll be there. I'll pick another day wherever I gotta travel, I'll get to pick another day.
Excellent. So let's go to the action matrix. I'm sure number one hasn't had any activity.
I had some correspondence with the deputy county administrator, and we'll follow up with the county administrator. He's been out for a couple weeks. So,
Okay.
But I did have some conversations.
Kelly, you still working on the other one?
We're still working, yep. We had an appointment today that got derailed by auditors, so we'll find some
Okay.
time this week to wrap some stuff up.
Out of service, the ambulance again, police, faulty wiring harness. That thing's been out since 5/20 with a faulty wiring harness.
Yes, and some other issues related to the exhaust. I can get an update from the police chief and forward that to you.
Vac-on's out with a gasket. 8/9 recent out of service fire engine emission system issue. What? Freightliner.
Yeah, so there's three of the DPW trucks have been put back into service.
Yep, see
and then
that.
he's got 2 new ones that are out.
Okay, anything else? Anybody got any questions? Motion, Mark?
Did you want to see if there's any other public
Oh, I'm sorry,
comment?
yes, is there anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none?
Go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2D land. Anything else?
Can you add A, compensation, please?
A, compensation as well.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly, it's a roll call. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the August 22nd, 2022 Select Board meeting. Thank you for watching.